I consider myself to be an optimist, and I still do. So I watched Tim and Sid yesterday, and we got up to the point where Elliot Friedman's on the show, and he's optimistic we're going to see a season. I'm optimistic we will as well. But the players aren't happy. We knew the players wouldn't be happy. So the owners hammer out an agreement with the players during the summer, right? So they hammer out a CBA extension, everything's fine. But the owners clearly underestimated just how hard things were going to be going forward. They underestimated how much money they could lose in the process of trying to have future seasons. So they're basically telling the players, we need you to take less money. And it's the money that we heard Larry Brooks report out on, which I'm sure John Tortorella was glad to hear from him about it. And the players are upset about the deferral request. Here's the thing. So let's just take this to the conclusion of, okay, so we won't have a season. All right, do the players really want to come back after this is all said and done and say we weren't willing to come back and play for less while there were millions and millions of people out of work because we were only going to make $500,000, million, $3 million to play hockey? And I understand where the players are coming from. I do. The optics are terrible. Every time we've had a lockout where the owners say we're locking the players out, the players have always been the ones that lose the PR battle. The biggest difference is simple. You know that Gary Bettman guy that people can't stand? That, you know, last night in the live stream for the PlayStation, there were people that were upset that I was defending Gary Bettman and saying, yeah, he does a good job. He is the voice for the owners, so everybody can polarize on him. Everybody can say he's the bad guy, he's the one that says all this crap. But he's saying what the owners are telling him to say. If he was saying something that the owners didn't agree with, he wouldn't be where he is. He makes the league more money. He makes this work. Gary Bettman wants this season to happen. Gary Bettman wants to make sure that this works. Gary Bettman also wants to act as that go-between between the owners and the players and make this happen. Now, on the players' side, whenever there's any kind of a stoppage, we don't have a unified voice. We have a bunch of players who always in any kind of stoppage will go rogue. They'll go off about how selfish everybody is and usually talk about the owners and how selfish they are and how much they hate this guy and that guy. And it's just, it becomes untenable because then you'll hear somebody else come out and say, well, we're still dealing with the process. And then, you know, you've got, 600-700 different players and they're going to have different opinions. And because you don't end up with that unified voice from the players, the owners are pretty good. I know you're going to have an owner here and there that goes off and says something dumb and you go, wow, why did Jeremy Jacobs say that? But in general, the owners are pretty unified and the players usually aren't. So what ends up happening is that the players lose the PR battle and they lose the war against the owners every time because the owners just have a unified vision. The owners have come together and said this is the amount of money that we think we need to claw back in order to ensure there's a season and that this works. Now, in being deferred money, it's not that they're saying they're not going to pay it. It's a matter of them paying it later when things recover financially. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a long while for the economy to bounce back and for the NHL to get back to where it was before 2020. This is not simple. This is not something that's easy. And so I think players, where we end up is going to be interesting because we watched baseball almost self-destruct and then it didn't. Basketball, there was some fighting back and forth and then they made it work. The NFL looked like, are we going to have a season? And then we did. I think the NHL, and again, I agree with Elliot on this, I think we'll see a season from the NHL and the players because they have to. I did that video on why we have to have a 2020-2021 season, and nothing's changed since I made that video. It's still the same reasons why you have to have a season this year. If the players say we're not willing to defer money, they're costing themselves more later. It doesn't mean that the owners for 2021-2022 aren't going to look to make amendments again. And for owners, they can afford to sit. They can afford to sit out much longer than the players. The power is still with the billionaires over the millionaires. So we'll see how this goes, and I don't think it's going to be something that wipes out the whole season. but it also doesn't look like it's going to be solved in a couple of days. Honestly, what likely ends up happening is the players come back and say, okay, we'll take a deferral of, and then there's a different number in there, and eventually they agree on a number. Otherwise, yeah, you may end up not having a season, and then what? And then you've just released all these jerseys now to a fan base that's going to go, wow, so no games this year to actually wear these in, huh? And then you've got all these other agreements with sponsors. You've got your television contracts. All that money goes out the window. And keep in mind, and I've said this in recent videos as well, if the players are willing to accept a rising salary cap every year because things are getting better financially, then during a pandemic, during a year where the economy is completely decimated, they should also understand, hey, this is where we're going to lose some money because the economy would state that we have to. So I understand why they're upset that they already agreed to lose some of that money for this coming season, but we'll see what happens. And again, and I've had this debate as well on the Facebook page and on Twitter. Owners don't, being worth a certain amount of money doesn't mean you have it on hand. So if somebody's worth a lot of money, they don't necessarily have just an endless supply of cash to throw out there, and there's a certain amount they're willing to lose. Businessmen at some point will say, I'm only willing to lose this amount of money. Anything more than that, and forget it. And if all the owners come together and say, this is how much we're willing to lose, we all agree on this, go tell them, Gary. There you go. All right, so we'll see what happens with that. We'll see how long this goes, because if it goes much past this weekend, then we're not going to start January 1st. We can't. We've already got players coming into Canada for the World Junior Championships. They're doing their 14-day quarantine, and they're getting tested. And that's for, a tournament that starts in December. So players are going to have to ramp up their workouts, and they're going to have to be entering Canada to get ready over the next week or so. And if we don't see that, then that's an indication that they don't believe they're coming back for January 1st either. Now, a player who may not be coming back is Anders Nilsson. Anders Nilsson of the Ottawa Senators, these guys here, he has stated that he is still dealing with concussion symptoms. Now, he was concussed last December, so it's been almost a full year for Nilsson. This is where we get into the area of, is he coming back at all? So this is why having Murray and then Hogberg, having two other young goaltenders, if Nilsson ends up not being able to come back to play, ends up on LTIR, I just hope he ends up all right. And it's one of those things where with concussion symptoms, you have your good days, you have your bad days. Days where it's just you have massive headache problems, and it can cause all kinds of other problems. So hopefully Nilsson's okay, and the Senators will take care of him either way. Lundell of the Florida Panthers drafting of this year, for lack of a better way of wording that, Anton Lundell, who was drafted by the Florida Panthers, 12th overall, I believe it was. Yeah, he had 2 goals and 4 assists against Urquhart in an 11-1 win. Helsinki had 11 goals on 28 shots, and I looked it over. Urquhart, had played okay coming into that game. I don't know where you end up allowing the 11 goals. One goalie allowed 6, and the other goalie allowed 5. So that tells me either the goaltending was awful or the defense was terrible. And when I see 11 goals on 28 shots, and it's between 2 goaltenders, I think that's the defense. So good on Lundell for 2 goals, 4 assists. And, for Urquhart, it only counts as 1 game. So there we go. And final news note is that Jarmo Kekalainen remains certain Pierre-Luc Dubois will be re-signed to an extension by the Columbus Blue Jackets before training camp. Now, think about it. Maybe he doesn't think there's going to be a training camp. There you go. Because I was writing up this board, I thought somewhere Jarmo and Lou are sitting. Lou Lamoriello, they're sitting, they're talking, they're going, all right, I can't get Dubois to sign. That's all right. I can't get Barzal to stay under the cap. How are we going to do this? Hey, let's get the owners to not have a season. Perfect. Then we never have to worry about the salary cap. So there you go. Kekalainen's going to get signed. We just don't know for how much yet. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.